Hello everyone. Today we're going to look at one of the most basic but very important topics in chess, how to play against Scholar's Mate, or how to punish your opponent for trying to play Scholar's Mate, hoping to win the game in just 3 moves. First of all, it's worth noting that in its classical form, Scholar's Mate starts with h5, attacking the pawn on e5. If black defends, white develops the bishop and, in just 3 moves, is already threatening mate. At this point, many black players even set a pre-move because they don't really understand what's going on and simply play f6, overlooking mate on f7. The exact same thing can happen, for example, if the opponent plays the bishop's opening. We now play c6, and then we expect moves like f3 or c3. But instead, the opponent plays h5, and since we pre-moved f6, we once again get checkmated. So, in the classical version, this is all about the queen going to h5 with the idea of capturing the pawn. What you should not do in this situation is push the g-pawn to g6, because after the capture, you lose a rook to a double attack. So, friends, what should we do? We should play c6, defend the pawn, but after c4, we must not bring out the second knight under any circumstances. Here, we need to defend with g6. We chase away the opponent's queen, and white retreats to f3, once again creating the threat of Scholar's Mate. Then we play f6, blocking the queen. Around this moment, white realizes that Scholar's Mate didn't work, but continues the game, because in reality, nothing terribly bad has happened yet. Yes, black has a slight computer advantage, but in practice, the game continues, nothing dramatic is going on, and even many grandmasters play like this. In general, different grandmasters play this way with white, because the position is not that bad. In this position, it's important to understand what white is playing for, what black is playing for, and what plans both sides have. So, white's plan is to develop the bishop to g5 and put pressure on the knight on f6. Black's plan is to use the d4 square and, of course, to complete development, bring out the bishop and castle. So our main idea is to use the d4 square, because white brought the queen out early in the opening, and we know that this violates a basic chess principle. The queen should not be developed too early. Therefore, white has 2 main moves here, e2, which stops d4, or c3, which also stops d4. Less often, d3 is played, and we will also look at that move. Let's start with e2. First of all, let's look at this move. It's the strongest move according to the computer. What do we do here? We develop our bishop to g7. Then white, of course, plays d3. And here I want to point out an important moment. We are not afraid of g5. That is, there is no need to play h6 here. That move is fine in principle, but then we remove one possible trap from our side. For the same reason, we also do not play d6. This move is also fine, but it softens the position a bit and is too solid. We keep the pawn on d7, because in the future, we want the option to push it 2 squares forward without losing tempo. So for now, we simply castle in this position. Of course, white will bring the bishop to g5. This is where the fun begins. We play h6. The bishop has to retreat. No one is going to capture the knight for no reason. Then we play g5, chasing the bishop away. The bishop goes to g3. Now notice how cramped white's queen is on f3. But we should not attack it directly, because it can simply go to e3 and everything will be fine, while we would unnecessarily weaken our king. By the way, note that moving the pawns in front of your king is usually not very good, but in this specific situation it is justified. First, our king is well protected by pieces, and second, we are attacking. We are not doing this randomly, everything is done with tempo, and it will be very hard for the opponent to seize the initiative. So in this position, we play d5. That's the key idea. That's exactly why we didn't play d6 earlier. We play d5 immediately. The opponent captures the pawn, and then we jump out with g4. Now white has problems, because the queen must retreat to the only square available, e3. And now we play d4, jumping in. In principle, we could also capture on d5, but d4 is even more interesting and stronger, because we threaten a fork on c2 and also attack the knight. The opponent captures our piece on d4. We recapture with the pawn. He captures again, and he doesn't realize that we have opened the center while his king is still in the middle. This, by the way, is a universal rule. If your king is already castled and your opponent's king is stuck in the center, try to open the center as quickly as possible and not give him time to escape. Now we reap the rewards. We play e8, the king retreats. And here there are different continuations. One nice option is e2 with check, the king retreats again. And here, for example, the strongest move according to the computer is h5. But I personally like d7 more, with the idea of attacking the queen and leaving it with no escape squares. All the queen's squares are now covered, and it has absolutely nowhere to go. White loses the queen. With this line, we can beat white very quickly, Just 15 moves, and the win is already in our hands. Now, let's look at what to do if white plays c3. In this situation, we continue in a similar way. We play g7, the opponent plays d3, most often castles, and then plays g5. The idea is basically the same, friends. We play h6, the bishop retreats, we play g5, the bishop retreats again, and then we break through the center. Once again, our king is castled, his king is stuck in the center, so we must break the center open. We play d5, and after the capture, the bishop jumps to g4. The queen retreats. Now, note one difference here. When the pawn stayed on c2, we jumped to d4. Now we cannot do that because the pawn has moved to c3. So instead, we simply capture the pawn on d5. He captures, and we recapture. We attack the pawn on g2, and if the opponent plays f3, we simply retreat our bishop, create pressure on the pawn on d3, and white has a lost position. The computer gives something like -4.5, -5. So don't worry, we win this game comfortably. The last line we will look at is when, after our knight comes to f6, the opponent simply plays d3, with the idea of opening the bishop. Well, he did not stop d4, so we happily play d4. The opponent retreats, and here we play very aggressively b5. The strongest move according to the computer is d5, but there are some tricks there as well. He captures, then we have to play b5 anyway. I think b5 is a bit simpler, but still very interesting and strong. After b5, the bishop retreats, and then we play a5, with the idea of simply trapping that bishop. If white plays, for example, a3 in this position, we can calmly capture the bishop, because now it cannot capture toward the center. That is, we do not take the bishop immediately while it can recapture with the a pawn. Now, his pawns are quite weak, and the pawn on d3 is especially weak. We can then play d5, open the center, he captures, we capture, with any piece really. Let's say we capture with the knight, and then calmly continue developing, g7 and castling. This is if he plays a3, but if he plays c3 instead, nothing really changes. He has to move one of these pawns anyway, because otherwise we will play a4 and almost trap the bishop. So after c3 we capture, he recaptures. It doesn't matter whether with the queen or the pawn, and in this position we again play d5, break the center open. He captures, we capture, and then calmly continue developing. f3, g7, castling, castling. Black has the better position thanks to white's weak pawns, especially the pawn on d3. We can bring the bishop forward and later attack it with the queen and the bishop. Plus, black has more space and the bishop pair. I understand that at the amateur or beginner level, the bishop pair doesn't seem to mean much. But trust me, friends, in the long run, if your goal is to improve, the bishop pair really is an advantage, and it does matter. So learn to play with two bishops, try to open the position, and look for ways for these bishops to work together. These are roughly the ideas for how to refute the arrogant queen jump to h5, friends. Write in the comments about other openings that annoy you, that irritate you when your opponents play them. Openings that may be objectively incorrect, but you don't know how to respond to them. Thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon.